Hey everybody, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpen and Laser Engraving. So I've been looking up to see what are issues that people have with the Omni1. It's a very different style of laser, but it's a truly amazing laser. And one of the things that I noticed early on was the difficulty with focusing and seeing the placement of your laser. Now they give you this green piece of acrylic that you see here to show where your laser is hitting. But one of the problems with this is the thickness of this piece is probably a good like 1/4 inch. And when working with really small items and also glass, I found working with that large piece of acrylic to be very difficult with certain items, especially small things and glassware, which is really where this laser shines, is doing glassware. I started thinking about what could be solutions for this. And I've mentioned before, I used to be very into photography and I have several filters, and I figured, you know what, maybe let's go try some of my photography filters for different things. This is a set of warming filters used for flashes. And what was amazing was this worked really well. You can see how well that mark's showing up. It's bright yellow. And I found that using the different filters gave me different colors. Some of them gave me completely different colors, like this one up here. This green one gives me blue, but you could see those warming filters gave me kind of a yellow, which is really helpful when you have different types of objects and color objects and things. Some of these different filters will reveal that bounding box where other times you couldn't see it at all. So this got me thinking as to what else might work. I went and grabbed my Lee filter samples, which are filters for gels for photography. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of colors. And I thought maybe these would work. And I went through absolutely every single filter in the Lee pack. And what surprised me was the colored gels didn't work. In fact, they didn't help at all. You couldn't see anything. And even ones that were the same colors as the acrylic didn't show up anything. You couldn't see the laser outline or bounding box at all. Now, at the very end of the Lee filter pack are a bunch of diffusion filters and cloths. I thought, well, maybe the diffusion filters and cloths will work. And what was surprising was that the diffusion filters didn't work at all, but the polyester spun cloth, which is used in soft boxes that we put flashes into, worked. So these are often used in making light boxes and diffusers in photography. If you've ever seen those big white things that we put flashes into, that's what is often in front of these. It's a diffusion material. And you can buy just the material. It's usually not crazy expensive, but I wanted to show you how well these show up. Now, the very best one I found from Lee was 464. This one's great because you can really see through the product. But let me see if I can show you how well that's showing up. So I can see everything on that lighter where this is at, and it's super thin. It's right up against it, so I can see where that's going to hit. And the other ones that worked really well were the other two, which were similar cloths. So the next one is what they call quarter grid cloth, and you can see just as good. And it's just a tiny bit less see-through, but still very able to see through there. And then the third one is just bigger squares, but it's kind of pretty much the same material. And same thing, you can see through it. This one's a little bit denser than the other one. What surprised me was that not everything that was white worked. And you can see, yep, not very good. It's all blurred out. All these things don't work exactly the same. Even white paper is good, except for the only problem is you can't really see through it. So here's just like a page that marks these. And yeah, I mean, you can kind of do it like a half on there to kind of see where you're hitting, but not fantastic. But those were a couple other options and things that you might have lying around that you might find work really well for placing your engraving. The one I really liked was these warm photography filters for my flashes. I found that they worked really well. And let me switch it to a bounding box, how good you can see that. I like having these thinner options on the acrylic that will show this laser so that I can get them closer to the object that's being engraved. Another problem I heard people talking about was when they were engraving glass, they were having a hard time focusing their laser. They were having a hard time seeing their design on the glass. And this is super important, that your focus has to be on the surface. And this is another reason why, although this is great, it's not always perfect for doing particular things. So if this beam, now let's bring my laser dots down here. So here's my two little focus dots. Now, if you're trying to focus those dots on the surface of this glass, it's clear, it's going straight through it. And this isn't really going to help you at all. It's going straight through all three of them. You need to put something down on that surface. This is where the cloth that I just told you about, the woven cloth, can be super helpful because it's very, very thin. You can pull it nice and tight and have that focused properly on that surface so that it is engraving on the surface. This is also where you can use paper. And the interesting thing is, I tried, like I said, I went through the entire leaf filter pack. You would think that all of these frosted filters would work. Some of them do and some of them don't. Also, super helpful is shut your room lights off. If you have too much light in your room, do you see how we can't see? My bounding box just showed up. Well, let me show you. There's the room light on. It's gone. It just completely vanished, right? We can't see it. It just disappeared. You would never even know it's there. Turn a little light off, and now we can see it a little bit better. But you can see how that can be challenging. And also your background colors will make a difference. So now you can see, we can see that bounding box through the glass because of the cork that's there. But if we have it directly on the laser, we're not seeing anything. Yeah, but we can throw certain things on top of them to make it easier to see. When it comes to focusing your laser, you definitely want to use some type of either see-through, white, opaque material to make sure that you are focused on that surface. Because if you're off a little bit, you will get your engraving. It could be in the middle. It could be at the bottom of your glass. Yeah, another place where it can be really tough and why the cloth comes in handy, say you're using your rotary, okay? And you're trying to set this up on a rotary, you can see the same thing you could run into. Now, we're not even close to properly focused here. Let me bring this up. So if I was trying to focus those laser dots, that to me looks like where it would be. That looks like it's the surface, but is it really? And I found this can very easily be off, but by just simply throwing, this will drape over that really nicely. And I can see I'm actually a little too high. And right there, I'm kind of spot on for that surface now. So using something to help, and now also look, do you see how we can see our bounding box? So let me change this to something that you can see better. So you see how difficult this would be to place on your green acrylic. It can be tough. It might get you real close, but you could be off a little bit. And that's where having something like this that you could drape over top of it, but it's still somewhat see-through, can be really helpful to see where your engraving is going to be. Here's the heavy frost filter paper, and even this works really well. You can see if you had a nice piece of this, you can bend that over. But a real key there is also your room lights. So I'll show you how much harder this is if you have too much light on your laser. See, I can't even see that. It's just too bright. Simply turning off your room lights and using some other objects will sometimes be the solution to placing your engraving in the right spot. And again, here are the, these are one of my favorite, is just these photography warming filters. You can see how great they are. Another recommendation, which is something I'm going to do, is I'm going to order some other acrylics and cut them. So having some squares, rectangles, thin pieces of acrylic. I did order some of this color, fluorescent acrylic, but you can see having a thin piece really helps you get it right on top of your item so you can see where it's at. This is helpful, but sometimes it's just too far away. Those couple of millimeters, I mean, you can see the difference in thickness here is significant. So it's just nice to have these other options. It's good to have options. Now, I think the thing that surprised me the most was that all the different green filters, and even ones that are fairly close to that fluorescent acrylic, don't show anything. Let's take a look at some of these green filters. Yeah, this Hunter one. Again, nothing. Nothing. This one's a little closer to that yellowish fluorescent. And zero, nothing. We're not seeing anything, even with the lights off. Now this one's about as close, I think, as you're gonna get fluorescent, right? I mean, that's... You would think this gel would show up really well, right? Let's say. Nothing. And I went through this entire pack, and it's only the frosted filters that sometimes show up, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't all of them. It's only some. But none of these green gels. I really thought for sure, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, I bet you a green photography gel is going to work great. And nothing. And nothing. I mean, look how close these two are in color. I mean, really close. The acrylic, you can totally see it. This gel, nothing. Alrighty, everybody. So the next thing I wanted to try was some other acrylics, some thinner acrylics. So I ordered some translucent neon kind of acrylics that looked very similar to the green one that came with the machine. So here's the one that came with the machine. And what I found is if you turn them sideways and you see it glowing like this one is, and I don't have the light on right now, I'll turn the light on, but you can see they really glow. If you see that glowing, especially in the dark, if you see it glowing like that, they tend to show up real well. So out of the pack of acrylics that I bought, I got several. So there was this yellow one, and you can see that looks fantastic. And it's nice and clear, so you can see through there. Then I saw this kind of pinkish one here that really glows. And again, you can see through there pretty well. It's not as clear as the other two, but it really does show up really well. So that was another score. That was good. There was a similar green one in there to the green that it came with. And of course, that looks just fantastic. And that's showing up well. Now, there was a couple that didn't work at all. So there was this orange one. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not this one. This one does work when it's dark. So I wanted to show you this one. It's got a little bit of reflection. And that was one thing I did too. I took the whole pack, and rather than unwrap all of them, I just put them under the laser, and I looked to see which ones were showing up on the edge. And you could see pretty clear, see if you guys can see that, some of them really start to shine. And that was how I knew that one was pretty good. Now this one, when the lights are on, it's a little bit harder to see. But you can see it, it's there, but with the lights off, yeah, that one looks really great. And then let's see, there's one other one over here. I don't remember. I think this one was kind of similar. Yeah, so this one's really dark, but it's still translucent. And it's another one of those with the lights out. You can see it really well, but this one you kind of need the lights on to see what's under there. But it's still working really well. So far, almost half of the pack are usable that I could turn into some sort of device for being able to see my engraving. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 here that were not showing me anything at all on the side. Well, there's actually one here. This one here in the middle. There is one more here that looks like it might work, but I didn't go through them all. But I mean, there are plenty of pieces here in this little variety pack that you can use. So then you can take these. Now, if you have a CO2 laser, which unfortunately I don't have a CO2 laser, I cannot cut these pieces of acrylic into shapes that I want. I wish I had a CO2, but unfortunately, it's the one I don't have in my shop. I have several diodes, I have UVs, and I have fibers, but I do not, to date yet, own a CO2. I have 2 big diode that are gantries. I could probably replace one of these with a CO2. So you can see this red one, nothing here. I ordered just a big green fluorescent piece so that I could cut lots of different pieces out of it. And you know, these are clearly the best. So if the green and yellow fluorescent absolutely show up perfect, you just can't miss them. So this one, I'm kind of leaving the paper on because I'm going to cut this with some tools to cut different shapes. I want to cut some round pieces. I want to cut some thin pieces so that I have just a nice variety of pieces of acrylic that I can grab to place engravings on when I can't fit that big giant piece on top of something, which has happened a lot. I intend to use these things to make myself a nice little variety of engraving placement aids for this laser so that whenever I'm using it, I'll have multiple options of things I can just reach for that will fit and will make putting the engraving where I want it a lot easier. All right, everybody. So what I want to do is show you quickly how I'm going to make some little patterns to trace out my acrylic, and then I'm going to cut it with a saw. But keep in mind, you could easily do these same type of patterns if you are lucky enough and own a CO2 laser. You could cut them with a CO2 laser. I'm just going to use some cheap plywood to cut them because I'm just going to use them to trace lines on the acrylic, and then I'm going to cut it with a bandsaw that I have. But just some options. But let me show you how easy it is to make a pattern design to make my little engraving placement kit. So here we go. First, I'm going to just come up top here and I'm going to select a square. Now, if you hold down your shift key, click and drag, you will get a perfect square equal on all sides. If you don't, you will get a rectangle. And I let go of my shift a little too soon there. So we'll do that again. Shift and drag, then let go. And you see I have a square that is equal on all sides. Now, if I want to customize the size, I can come up top here and I'm just going to change. I know I want this to be 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to change that. And you can see because the size is locked, it did it automatically on the bottom, and we have this perfect 2.5 inch square. Now, I would like mine also to have rounded corners. If you want to do that, you need to go into shape properties. This is an easy way to do it. If you don't see shape properties, it usually shows up over here on the right. But if you come up here into Windows, if you don't see it, it's probably because you don't have it turned on. And you'll see down here, there's a shape properties. Just click it so it puts a check mark on it for you and it will turn it on. Now, with shape properties, with squares, if you see, if I come over here, on the very bottom, I have corner radius. And if I click this, see how it added a radius to my square. And at a 0.25, I get a nice rounded corner. And that looks good to me. I'm going to draw another square again. This time, I'm not going to draw a perfect square because this is going to be my little handle. I'm going to take that, and there we go. We got my little handle. Now I want to attach this to this, and I want it to be one piece. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing, I want to put it in the center of it. So what I can do is if I highlight both and I can say align vertical center, so now they're aligned perfectly. And then if I select both of these, one of the options I have over here, you can see this one right here, this Boolean tool, it's going to subtract where they're joined together. These were not touching close enough, so I'm going to go back here again, and I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. You want them overlapping. All right. Now I'm going to select both. Now when we do it, you'll see it will subtract the two. And you see it took out that little middle part. And now I have my little shape with the little handle tab that I wanted, and it's at 2.5 inches. Okay, and for my X tool users, I don't want to leave you guys out. It's pretty much the same thing here. I'm in XCS. I just want to show you, you can see I've already started making some shapes because I'm actually going to cut these on my F1 Ultra. But same thing here. If you click on a shape, you actually have it's very easy in XCS. Similar thing. If you drag it out, you get a square. I believe it's also shift and drag. No, it's a little different. Doesn't give you, it's not the same as Lightburn, but exactly the same thing. You can lock your shape in place. And if you want to do your exact dimensions that you want, you can enter that yourself. So if you see, if I come up top here and I go 2.5 inches, it gave me 2.5 inches there. And then I could come up to my width. These are next to each other, and I could go 2.5 there. So now I have, oh, I didn't lock it. Sorry, I should have locked it. Let's go 2.5. So you can see there we have our perfect square. Very similar in here. They also have a radius tool, and all you have to do to use the radius tool here is you click on it. Okay. And then as you enter you can use your arrow keys. You'll see I'm going to start clicking my arrow keys up. Do you see the little radiuses being put in there? And that's all I have to do. And I can do that to where I get a radius that I like, and I can just hit enter. And there's my little radius. And the same thing here. Again, I can select the square. I want to put a little handle on it. And again, now I do like XCS software is nice and easy. You know you're in the middle when you see that line. There I have my two pieces. They are touching, and similar type of thing. I'm going to click and highlight over both. And then same thing, I have that subtraction tool, and it's right here. It's they call it Unite in XCS. So you click that and you'll see that little piece disappeared in there. And now I have one shape that I could put on here and cut out. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is to do that. You can do it on Lightburn software. You can do it in you can do it in XCS for all you X tool users out there, and most of the other creative softwares for doing laser engravings all have very similar tools. But just wanted to show you how we're doing that. All right, so let's get on with making these shapes. See a little bit of a flame I'm getting there. Just keeping an eye on it. It's usually that first pass, then it starts getting deeper and going through. And then when you see the light sometimes popping through the bottom, when you can see it on your cut plate, if you see the blue light shooing through, you kind of usually know you got through, and that's looking pretty good to me. Sometimes you'll also see the piece pop. Sometimes it pops up a little bit, and you know that you have completely gotten through. And I think we're through. Sometimes tapping it will let you know. Yeah, we're clearly through. And there again, we have a nice pattern. You can wipe it off a little bit if you get a little charring. Easy to wipe off. Like I said, these are just little patterns I'm using to trace by hand. I'm not even sure if I'm going to bother with the rounded corners, but that's all I need. I just need a basic pattern. I'm using my Delta bandsaw to cut this out. Okay, so it's a little rude and crude, but it is cut out. Now I'm going to just go to my sanders and clean it up a little bit and get this shaped a little bit nicer. My life, which I'm sure I will get. All right, so that's good enough. And I'm just going to round the corners a little bit so there's no sharp edges. Get any dust off of there. All right. And now I can peel my protective layer off of the acrylic. This is always the hardest part of working with acrylic. Peeling the protective tape off. Man. That's why I've been keeping my thumbnails a little longer lately. There we go. One side off. Beautiful. And there's our beautiful little placer. It's part of our engraving kit. All right. So that's what I wanted to show you. That's my little project for today. You can see there's my big piece. I wanted one big piece that I could cover the whole base with. If I was doing a big engraving, I wanted the medium one and I want small, and I'm gonna make a few more as I've showed before, and I have the different colors. I'm gonna make some in different colors. And just as an example of why you might want these different little focusing aids is depending on a lot of the different things you work with different colors. So I'll just show you on these silicone dog tags that I love making. They certain times you get lucky and some colors show up. So look at our pink. You can see, we can see it right on there. No problem. This green's always been one of my favorite. They work really, really well. But sometimes you get a color like white. And look at that. You can't see anything. So having a small piece of acrylic that's in the size that you need, that you can put right on top of your item, that's not super huge, is super helpful. And that's why I've made these in different sizes. Okay, and here's the other difference I'll show you too. So the one it comes with is really thick. This one's 3 millimeters. And this is about double. This is a very thick piece of acrylic, which is nice. But that extra distance sometimes does make it difficult, as opposed to having where you can have it right up next to it. It's just super helpful, and having just lighter sizes, smaller sizes of things that you can get in there. So that's my recommendation. If you want some help making placement of your items easier. Oh, the other thing too, and I'll show you it with this white one, this might work. Also, don't forget, sometimes just shutting off your room lights helps. So let's turn off our room lights. And we can't on this white one, but sometimes certain white things do show up, as I've shown in my other video. Certain whites and certain materials. I believe this is polyester spun cloth. You can see I could totally place this engraving even with this polyester spun cloth, because I can see it right on top of the item, and that works really well. And then I've shown these one last time, but I'll show them again. These are photography filters. These are also one of my favorite. I will put the link in there. In fact, I think these are my absolute favorite because they are so thin. And these are even thinner than, so this acrylic in my hand is half the size of the acrylic that came with the OMNI1. And this acrylic filter in my hand, you can see is, it might be 1/3 of the 3mm acrylic. And look at that. You guys see that bounding box? Yeah, and depending, like I said, on, it's nice having different options. So here's green, and I bet you it shows up as blue. Let's say. No, we're even barely seeing, it is blue, but you could barely see it. Here's a lighter one. And here's a slightly darker one. Yeah, and that one right there, that's probably the best. I think you guys can see that. But really helpful in placing engravings on tiny things or having other little options like the few things I've shown you here today. Hope that helps some of you out. Have a great day, everybody. In the description section of this video, I will leave links to the translucent acrylics, the photography filters, the spun cloth, anything that you saw in this video that you might be interested in getting.